What's up, everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of the Late Dive Podcast with myself, Patty, and the one, the only, Nerdy.
What's going on, guys?
We're super pumped to share our passion with you of Formula One, and we'll be bringing you all the best Formula One info you need and discussing the past races. So we'll try and do those after every race, and talk about everything that's exciting about Formula One. And Nerdy, boy, man, were we treated to a drama-filled race last weekend in Hungary.
Honestly, one of the best races we've had all season. From beginning to end, there was drama, whether it was passes on the track, instances on the track, or team radio. There was just action everywhere. It was great. Great.
Yeah, and we'll get to all that in the next little bit. And sorry for not giving you a long-winded intro on our very first episode, but I want to jump right in. I want to jump right in after this race. Like it was absolutely insane. So yeah, let's do it, and let's start with. I know everybody loves the drama, but I'm big on giving the guys flowers. Very first win for Oscar Piastri. And if you ask me, well deserved. What did you think of his first win? Not the drama, but just his first win and what it means to him, and how good he looked.
You know, he definitely had some great pace throughout the race. Definitely a well-deserved victory. For any driver, having that first victory is such a confidence booster, and he's going to carry that for the rest of his career, the rest of the season. It's going to help him push that little bit extra. And I think it was super important that he got his victory this year. I know he had a sprint victory. What was last year, or was that this year? I just can't remember now. Everything's kind of blurred together. But
I think it's this year.
Yeah, it's great then. So yeah, it's good to finally get that win. It's great that both drivers, both him and Lando, have a win this season. I think it's going to be good for team spirit, morale, but also, like I said, for the driver, it's going to be key for him to keep pushing through the rest of the season.
And that car's not too shabby either, eh, Nerdy?
This is perfect placement, perfect time.
Man, that car is quicker than that car now.
Yeah. I've got some questions about that one, but yeah, definitely. The McLaren has definitely made some huge progress, and it's amazing to see how far they've come.
Isn't it insane, though? Like, where were they at the beginning of last year? Like, the first two races, Bahrain, weren't they? Like, they were 16th, 18th? It's bad. It's crazy.
Yeah, they've made huge strides, and I think they definitely have made huge gains since their Honda days, finally realizing that, they can't place the blame on other people and really looking within themselves to try to reorganize their organization to give them a more solid footing so that they could come back like this. So I honestly, McLaren was one of my favorite teams when I first started watching F1, so it is so rewarding for me to see them come back to the top.
Yeah, I agree. I've always liked McLaren, and they have awesome drivers. And again, Oscar, congratulations. It's not the first time we've seen a first win in Hungary. Esteban Ocon did it a few years back. And what a moment for him that was. And now Oscar is a little bit calmer and not as eccentric when he wins. But congrats again to Oscar. But his boy, Lando Norris, another podium.
Yep.
I mean, that car's flying. And he, if you ask me, might be the quickest guy on track out of the 20 drivers right now with the car and driver combo. Before we talk about the radio, what did you think of his race and his pace?
Obviously, Lando, same thing. Fantastic race pace. I know they had a bit of a issue with strategy, trying to cover off Lewis Hamilton, but I think regardless of everything that happened, he and Oscar very easily had the pace to run away with the race, which we can see at the end how they finished marginally ahead or substantially ahead of Lewis. So, Lando, fantastic showing. The beginning of his race was a little bit iffy. He lost the start to Oscar. But I think we've consistently seen with Lando that his race starts aren't that great. And if he can perfect that, he is going to be a force to reckon with.
I was not too happy with. I call BS on Lando covering off Hamilton.
Okay.
I just think he would have been ahead of Hamilton if they pit Oscar first.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting into the whole McLaren strategy, the whole fiasco that started and that made that win for Oscar, in my opinion, not as exciting for your first win.
Mm-hmm.
But do you actually think there was merit to like their explanation of saying we want to cover off Hamilton, so we will pit you first, Lando?
To be honest, when I looked at the deltas and the time difference between them, and even with Lewis Hamilton putting out a phenomenal lap, there would have been no undercut. He still would have had about a 1 to 2 second lead over Hamilton after that pit stop phase, even if he pitted a lap later. So their rationale, or at least their excuse for pitting Lando early, doesn't really make sense. And I kind of wonder why they would do that strategy. But yeah, it's hard to say in retrospect what happened, because the team made their call, they made their excuse, and there's really no way for us to see. But yeah, it's definitely suspicious.
I know this is super, super early, but do you think Lando might not be their favorite driver anymore? Do you think maybe they're on equal footing? That might be a way too early prediction, but all the comments that have been made from Stella and saying how good Oscar is, how calm he is, how good he is for the team. Do you see like a bit of a switch, or do you think they're both equal right now?
That's hard. I think McLaren has been saying that they've had these drivers on equal footing. I think for them at this stage to start to prefer Oscar, especially when Lando is potentially a title contender, would be stupid. I honestly think this late in the game, in the season, we're 13 races in, you have one driver who has the chance to catch up to Max. You do absolutely everything you can to put your weight behind that driver. Even if they come up short, the amount of points they could potentially capitalize and just guaranteeing that one of the drivers finishes P2 in the standings not only is going to be great for team morale, but I mean sponsorships. I mean it's for me it was a clear call. I think they should have put their weight behind Lando, but I don't know. To say that they have a favorite, it's very possible, and I hope that's not what they're doing, because as a business, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. Well, they all do, but they should never, let it out.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah. So completely agree with you. I mean, Lando's should be the lead driver this year. They should put all their backing behind Lando. But do you remember what I told you about 6 months ago, Nerdy?
No, not ringing a bell.
Want me to put you on the spot, but my bold prediction, and you thought, well, a lot of people thought I was crazy, not just you. I said, doesn't matter how close Lando is to a championship, I said, I think Oscar will win a championship before Lando. And I still stand by that. And I don't mean that Oscar is better than Lando. I don't think he is yet, because the improvements in the last year that Oscar's made just on tire deg alone is insane. And the fact that he's creeping up into top fives every single race, if Lando doesn't catch up to Max this year and he doesn't win it next year, who's to say Oscar just doesn't keep getting better?
No, I definitely agree with that. I remember last year his biggest thing is that he could never do long stints. And he had that crutch behind him. And also he too, like Lando, has had poor race starts, which he seems to be getting on top of as well. So I definitely agree with you. I think long term Piastri does have the potential to peak higher. So it's really, can McLaren give Lando a winning car in time so that he can get that championship before Piastri, or will Piastri be able to come through next year if they can't get it this year, and eclipse his more mature, or not mature, but more experienced teammate? I agree with you. I would have said you were crazy before, but it's really starting to take shape. You've got merit there, yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about that tire deg improvement that Oscar's made. How good was that first stint in Hungary this past weekend? Because he had the best looking tires on the grid. He was in clean air, obviously, and he was just keeping the pace. And that's why, we'll get to it, but that's why I didn't agree with pitting him second and then putting him behind guys. Like, I don't care that Lando was pulling away.
Hmm.
The way Oscar was driving in clean air versus the way he was driving behind the car on different tires, like you drive differently.
Oh,
You drive
100%.
differently when you're in clean air and when you're not.
Hmm.
So he would have won the race by maybe Lando would have caught up to him, maybe Lando would have passed him, but he was driving way better in clean air. So to me, that's the biggest difference. And like you said, the race start. Let's talk about his race start. His race start was unbelievable. And three wide, it kind of
Yeah.
got helped by Max there being
Hmm.
on the outside, but he was right there. He had already gotten alongside Lando.
Hmm.
So I mean, that start was lightning fast.
Oh yeah, because I mean, when they launched off the line in that first phase of acceleration, I thought Lando had him covered. But that second phase of that run down to the first turn, Piastri just hooked up, had the gears in the right spot, and he just booked it up that inside. I was like, wow. I thought this was going to be a repeat of Rosberg and Hamilton circa Spain a couple years back. I thought there
Yeah,
was definitely contact. I thought Lando did not want to concede. I thought Piastri would be like, no, this is my position, and there'd be contact. But they both kept it clean, and it was actually Max on the outside that was almost collided with by Norris. But no, that was a phenomenal
yeah,
launch. Phenomenal launch. I was impressed.
yeah, absolutely. Um, let's get to the fun the fun stuff, nerdy.
All right, let's do
The, the,
it.
the team radios, the
Oh
team
man,
radios. I mean, that was the most entertaining part of that race.
yes, it was. Yep.
I mean, you decide. You want to start with Max or you want to start with Lando? Because with Max, I think it's stuff that we've seen before.
Yep. Yep.
Him and his relationship with GP.
Hmm.
With Lando, not so much. We haven't seen as much because he wasn't fighting at the front, but now like he is.
Hmm.
So I've always said you're always going to hear that more when you're fighting for wins because your
Yep.
adrenaline's pumping and you want that win. So I'll throw it to you. You want to start with Lando and McLaren or Max and Red Bull? And what did you think of the whole situation?
That's a hard one. I think you know what. Let's start with Lando. I think no. You know what? Let's start with Max because I think Lando's is a bigger deal than Max, and we should leave the caveat for the end. So yeah, let's start with Max first. Okay, so I've said this a couple times, especially in our Discord chat, about the difference between Max when he's very clearly winning versus Max when he's got stiff competition. And I think this is just a sign again of him kind of showing those cracks. He is a phenomenal driver. Do not get me wrong. This guy races in simulators until 3 a.m. in the morning and still is able to show up the next day and just wrestle that car around the racetrack like nobody's business. So I will give credit where it's due. But I do start to see a little bit of kinks in the armor in these kind of situations because last year when he was off the races, no competition, we didn't see any issues. It was a clean Max. And now that they're
Yeah.
not necessarily the fastest car on track and he's really having to fight, it's getting a little bit more emotional. You're starting to see these little bit of issues on over team radio or even just in his driving style.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's definitely frustrating. You nailed it. Like it's frustrating for him to not be as dominant.
Mhm.
That's the main thing, and it is for the best in any sport. Look how much it meant to Lewis to win
Mhm.
in Silverstone when he didn't have a car for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then look how much it meant to him, and the emotions that came out of him. Max shows his emotions much differently than Lewis. He is quick triggered.
Mhm.
He wants to win at all costs. He like Lewis, he's not used to losing. He's used to dominating, and he's having to push that car, which is dog shit right now. Let's be honest. Like that car looks like he has to wrestle it every single turn, not every lap, every
Mhm.
turn. He has to fight the car, and he lets his emotions get the better of him. And we all know Max doesn't care for media,
Yep.
doesn't care for, he just wants to live his life. He actually a very calm guy in his regular life, but he
Mhm.
just wants to live his life. When it comes to F1, he doesn't want all the extra curriculars. He wants to win. He wants to be in first. He wants to lap everyone.
Yep.
And when the car is as bad as it's been in forever for him, I think he's at peak frustration right now. And
100%. Yep.
so, I agree. It doesn't mean he's not good or doesn't know how to drive. I actually think it's phenomenal that he can wrestle that car right now. A car that can't go on curbs,
Mm-hmm.
a car that can't get under power, a car that chews away tires. That car never did that,
No,
and now it's looking like a Ferrari in
let's
terms of chewing tires.
yeah, let's talk about that for a second because when the season first started, they didn't have these issues. And I've heard some speculations that there's been another situation much like Ferrari where maybe they did something to the car and they were told to remove it. And now the car isn't performing as well as it used to be. Because, I mean, they made upgrades, I
Yeah.
give you that. And if the upgrades were making the car worse, they would have taken them off. But they haven't done that. So what happened?
I don't disagree with you. You know me, I'm a Red Bull fan, but I mean, it's quite possible. Um, it wouldn't surprise me. It's happened to how many teams over how many seasons? Either either they get caught with something or they put something they didn't know was wrong. They have to take it out. Performance changes,
Mm-hmm.
or Red Bull, just like Aston Martin, is putting upgrades on the car that is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is which is totally opposite of McLaren, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the hell McLaren did with their car in terms of just the foundation of it, the chassis, the floor, whatever. And then every single upgrade they put on that car looks like it's making it go 20 kilometers an hour faster.
Yeah,
Like
it's
every
crazy.
single one.
Yeah, yeah.
But for Red Bull, I agree. For Max, I agree. Maybe they did. Like maybe they were told, an upgrade, take that off or whatever they were doing. Um, but you can tell by Perez's performance too that car is
Yeah.
nowhere. So what about the discussion between Max and GP? Like for me, apparently as soon as they see each other in person, everything's good. They're like a married couple, right?
Yep, yep. They bicker.
So do you think these guys are playing to the cameras, or or maybe something like, do you think that it can go far enough that it will affect their relationship?
It really depends. I think GP is a very mature individual, and I think he understands that, when Max is in the car and he's, got all this adrenaline pumping through his body and he's trying to win a race, that he's going to be a little hot headed. I think we've seen tons of drivers lash out at their engineers. No driver hasn't. I mean, Lewis has done it to Bono. They've had a couple of spats back and forth, and they're best buddies. But I think if you have a mature engineer who understands the philosophy of it all and what the mindset is for a driver, he's not going to take any offense to these comments. And I think that it's just a natural part of the sport. We just don't get to hear these kind of radio messages all the time because we only get selected broadcasts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally agree. Now, we've seen that from Max time to time,
Mm-hmm.
but not with Lando. And
No.
Lando came across, not just to me, but to a lot of people, came across not worse, just different. He shows his frustration differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's different because we're not used to seeing it. And now I think we're going to start seeing it because he really wants to win badly too. Do you think too much was shared on the radio between Lando and his engineer?
That's a hard one because I feel like, once again, we only get snippets of broadcasts and what the F1 media decides to broadcast for us. And I would assume, based off of my personal experience with racing, that there's a lot of conversation over the radio from time to time, especially in these kind of high stress situations. So to say, did they share too much? Maybe. Or did F1 share too much? Because I think the conversation was entertaining, yes, but I think because of that conversation, it completely tainted Piastri's first win. Because if you play that entire race without those radio messages, and we see Piastri, we're like, oh my god, Lando did something unselfish for his teammate, blah blah, greatest teammate ever. But then we hear this message like, oh, he's a child who's just being petty and he wants to get as many wins. You know what I mean? Like multi 21 between Seb and Weber. I mean, that exact same scenario played through, and we only heard one radio message. And it completely had a
But
different
of
change.
course, the broadcast is going to play that. Like,
Oh,
of
100%.
course they're going to play. They have to, and I enjoyed it, right? And I think that's part of the reason Max doesn't like the broadcasting team and the media team and all that. He knows, like he said after the race, like in every sport, people chat and they yell at each other and this and that. But Lando did take a long time before he came around. And what I thought was too much on the radio is just talking about Sunday morning meetings. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to have your back. I promise you I'm trying to have your back. It was almost like they were trying to fix a relationship, like live in front of everyone, So I don't know if that's the broadcasting side or if that's them that should have just maybe said, we'll talk after the race. But it did take him a long time to give that position back and to want to.
Yeah, I mean, they're all racers. They're here to win. They're not going to want to give up positions or concede to a teammate because honestly, no matter how fast or slow you are, the first person you get measured against is your teammate. So you want to have more victories. You want to have more points in the season. I get it. You don't want to concede a position. And truth be told, I don't think he should have conceded the position. I'm not sure what arrangements they had in their meetings or whatever the case may be, but I think it was a bad look.
I think it might have had to do with the previous race where, everything played out like they gave Lando first pit, and then it's exact opposite situation in Hungary, and they don't do the same. And I agree. They should have just made a decision and stuck with it. And then, but then who do you piss off?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I totally agree. Do you think Lando can catch Max in the championship? This year?
If Max and Red Bull continue to have poor races, yes. And my main reason for saying this is because Checo is nowhere. It's hard to go 2 versus 1. If Piastri and Norris have very similar pace and they're at the top every single race, it's going to give McLaren more strategy options to have one driver play the team game and hold off Max, or even just the fact that Max has to pass both of them to get the position is going to change the entire race for the team. So yes, I think it's a possibility. Is it realistic? No. But it is possible.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to, I don't disagree with you. I think it will take a couple of DNFs from Max though. One or two more than Lando, let's say, till the end of the year, because we still have half the year. We still have a lot of races to go.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's been good so far, and we'll see if he can catch up. That car is a rocket ship, so it's the new Red Bull. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So Mercedes, Hamilton, another podium.
Yes.
You're a big Lewis fan. You're a big Mercedes. Yeah, he is, man. He's doing really good. What do you like from him? What do you like from the team? What do you like from the fact that he's going to Ferrari?
Oh man. So there's so much to digest here. I'll break down. Oh, okay. So first off, let's talk about his move to Ferrari. When he first announced his move to Ferrari, I was super excited. I'm like, yes, I know that the Ferrari strategist team will fuck up his first 200 races. I get that. But I was hoping that the way Ferrari ended off their year last year, and even how they started this year, that he would be moving to a faster car. And if they can just keep growing and progressing in the right direction, that he would have a better chance there than at Mercedes to get the potential 8th title. Now that the season's progressed and the Ferraris have gone backwards and Mercedes is building a rocket ship, I'm trying to figure out if Lewis has an exit clause out of this deal so he can stay with Mercedes, because if you've noticed, they haven't named a second driver yet. There's got to be some kind of backdoor. I'm hoping. I'm fishing.
Do you want that Ferrari seat or do you want that second Red Bull seat now? I don't know.
Oh, man. Okay, honestly, if you put Max and Lewis both in the same car, same pace, I honestly think McLaren wins the championship. Because I guarantee you they're going to take each other out every opportunity. They are both ruthless when they need to be. And as we've seen when they fought during 21 and 22, 20 and 21, how they fought together on track. No team order is going to stop that. You're not going to hear GP tell Max to back out of a pass. You kidding me?
You're right. It's either they crash into each other half the races, or they win the constructors by 300 points. There's no in between. There's no in between.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I think it'd be electric for fans, but I think it would be really bad for Red Bull to have to manage that situation. I just think back to like Hamilton and Rosberg. Like that
Yeah.
was it got to the point where Rosberg and Hamilton, if they made contact with one another, had to pay for the damage to the car.
Yeah, that was a good season to watch.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But I mean, I don't think Red Bull wants that kind of nonsense going on.
No. Okay. What do you think of Max's sim racing addiction? The fact that, well, I don't know. There's a lot here. Like, I don't think it's as big a deal as most people do. Apparently, he's always goes to bed late anyways, wakes up later. But before any of that, did you have an issue with him sim racing before races? Because we know he's done it in the past. Is it affecting his mood and his performance? And did you see or did you hear how many times on the British broadcast they mentioned that the reason he wasn't doing well and being angry is because of his sim racing the night before?
I think, as someone who worked in media, that telling a compelling story is always going to come to the forefront of anything that they see on screen. And I think they did a very good job at telling a great story. Do I agree with the story? No, because I myself know that I can function on 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and I understand that.
But
Yes,
Nerdy, he's getting blasted. The Crofty and Kravitz are getting blasted. I agree with you; it's a good story, but they mentioned it over 5 times. Could they have not done it like twice?
no, should have been 8 times. No, I get it. I honestly think they were trying to just pull some of thin air, get some attention, and I feel like at this day and age, especially with F1 media, they're not afraid to say the wrong thing because there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? If he were talking about it, replaying clips, going back to YouTube to watch the clips over and over again, that's just great for them. It's more in revenue, it's more income, right? So,
Yeah.
I definitely don't think there's a problem with it. I know that he is a diehard racer through and through. So if he has the opportunity to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning to do a sim race, yeah, he's going to do it. Hell, I do the same thing too. Did it affect his performance? Potentially. I don't know. Did he truly get 7 hours of sleep and that's all he needs? And probably had no effect. I really don't know how the inner workings of his life are, so it's hard for me to say. And the fact he had another sim race earlier this year and he won the race. So can we really say that, oh yeah, Max Verstappen's gaming addiction has stopped him from winning this race when he very clearly did the same thing a couple months ago and did perfectly fine? So no, I think it's rubbish.
Yeah. I wish I could get 7 hours sleep, Nerdy.
I'm with you on that one, man. 4 or 5 hours is all I get. Gotta live life, right?
Who was your driver of the day in Hungary?
Ooh, driver of the day. Okay, if I go by what we saw on the screen, I'm gonna give it to Piastri. If I see what happened in the times, I'm giving it to Hamilton. So obviously I see Piastri gets his first duck. Fantastic drive. He was consistent during the entire race. Regardless of what happened in the last stint, he was very consistent. And had he been in front, he probably would have been able to hold off Norris anyways. And I don't think he should get faulted for the team's poor pit strategy. So yeah, definitely phenomenal drive. I did notice after the race, F1.com I think was posted on, I think it was Instagram, the head-to-head battles between all the teammates and talked about the average race pace between them. And Hamilton was 0.4 of a second on average faster than Russell. That's boss. I'm sorry. I know Hungary's a stomping ground for Hamilton. He loves that track, but that's a crazy time difference.
That's a lot for a driver of Russell's caliber too, to be down 0.4. That's I agree with you, Oscar. I'll give it to Oscar, driver of the day. If you ask me who had the best pure pace, I think Lando, because of the second half of the race.
Yeah, okay.
But Oscar was the driver of the day. I want to give I don't usually do this, but I want to give a honorable mention to Checo. Checo made it back through the
Mm-hmm.
field and gained, what was it, like 9 positions?
I think that's right. Yeah.
He had a really, really good race. Lewis obviously did as well. But Checo come back like I've shown him enough this year. I'll give him his flowers for that one, starting from the back. So,
No, I agree with you. Checo did a phenomenal race because if I remember the data too, his time delta between him and Max was rather slim. I think it
yeah.
was only like 1/10 of a second, and he had to battle through traffic, whereas Max didn't really have to do that. So to be that close off an average time, no, yeah, he drove the hell off that car.
Yeah. Nerdy, let's talk about some other teams.
Okay.
Simple question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Have Aston Martin become irrelevant?
Yes, 100%. And I know this because Fernando Alonso has started talking about how great he is again.
I know. These F1 drivers and the way they talk, man,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
It's never their fault. It's something wrong with
Mm-hmm.
the car. It's
Mm-hmm.
something with strategy. It's something, I don't know. I mean, when you start talking about Lance Stroll which I think we can all agree he has great moments, but he's a
Mm-hmm.
bottom 5, 6 drivers out of the
Yep.
20. Um, Maybe not bottom 5, but definitely bottom 7. Um, we're seeing that Lance Stroll is having decent performances. Sometimes he's outperforming Alonso. Like when that's the case, it's just I just feel like the car is nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The team is going nowhere. The upgrades are not working.
Mm-hmm.
Alonso's probably not that interested anymore.
Yep.
So where do you think they go from here?
Honestly, it's hard because one, I don't think Aston Martin or McLaren should be outperforming Mercedes. As a constructor building the engine in the car, they should have a leg up off over both those teams. So really, in the pecking order, I kind of feel like they are where they're supposed to be. I think
Wow.
McLaren is the real duck or the real one that stands out here. Um, Aston Martin had a fantastic beginning to the year last year. I remember the battles between Fernando Alonso and Hamilton at the beginning of the season, and that Aston just had pace. Um, they've kind of developed themselves backwards, and yeah, they're really developing themselves into irrelevancy. Yeah.
Where did it go wrong from like you know, they have a Mercedes engine. They basically had a Red Bull car.
Mm-hmm.
It was starting to come together with them. Few podiums. I don't understand. The upgrades are not working. They revert back.
Mm-hmm.
I just to me it's sad because it's one of the teams I want to see
Mm-hmm.
do well. Just because of the history of Aston Martin as a company. The car looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of Alonso, obviously. Stroll, he is who he is, but he's our Canadian boy, so we got to deal with it. Um, so anyways, it's sad, but it is what it is. Moving on to Haas, we got Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon, who are going to be teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was super happy for Ollie Behrman. I'm not so happy for him now that he's going to have Ocon as a teammate. I don't think Ocon's a bad driver, but I think that he's never willing to give way. And for a young kid like Behrman, he might find out that that might not be the best place to be if he gets tangled up with his own teammate every race.
So I agree that having Ocon as your teammate when you first come to F1 is probably dog crap. It is. Um, I honestly don't think that Ocon is as fast as Behrman, and I also don't think that they're going to spend a lot of time at the same real estate on track. I don't think we're going to have a lot of Ocon versus Gasly moments because they're very similarly paced. I think Behrman is going to run circles around Ocon, and I say this basically just from that one stint he did at Ferrari. First time in an F1 car.
First year.
First time.
First year, you think he's
first
going to be
race.
faster?
I think so. He already had fantastic pace, and yes, I know he was in a Ferrari, and he was at Ferrari at its peak for the year. But to come in a car that wasn't properly fitted for you, with a steering wheel that didn't have the same options that you normally are used to because he was driving Science's wheel versus what he was used to, and still be able to pull off a P6. Like, come on, you put him in a seat that he's comfortable in, because he's also going to have free testing. So just that alone, his first race next year, he'll have more practice than he had in the entire time he had to suit up for the Ferrari seat. I think he's going to run in, grab that car by the reins, and then say, "See you, Ocon." And Ocon's get early termination.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But if you say after that one performance he's going to be this quick, that must mean that Lawson deserves a seat in F1 too. I think he does, but that must mean you think the same.
I agree. I think Lawson deserves a seat, and I think also too with Formula One, it's not always who deserves to be there. And I think there's a lot of drivers on the grid that have had seats for a long time that shouldn't have been there, but they got backing, they got money, and unfortunately, as much as we like to think of it as a sport, F1 is a business. I think personally that Danny Rick, as much as I love him, should go. Hell, I think Yuki should go. I think Zoe should go.
No.
I'm sorry, man.
Yuki.
Because Yuki has flashes of greatness. I will give him some races. You're like, what? Did Yuki just pull off that move? And then other races, you're like, what do? You move up one position in 80 laps?
Well, how many drivers do you want to kick out of F1? Because he's not in the bottom 6. He's not in the bottom 7.
If we're up to me right now, and I was like the new boss of F1, and I can build teams like I want to, and I can just get rid of drivers, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Stroll, Yuki, Ocon, Gasly.
You missed out the 2 steak guys.
Who? Bottas,
Joe, and Sargent. You didn't mention.
Oh my God, Sargent. Okay, yeah. Sargent's gone, 100%. I don't know. I forgot about him. Probably because he's just so irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottas? No, I think Bottas is struggling in that car. You think
Bottas is doing worse than Yuki or better than Yuki?
I think for the car, yes.
Okay.
I think. Okay. Could he have fallen off and I'm reading it wrong? Potentially. But I remember Bottas at Williams. I remember Bottas at Mercedes. And the fact that head-to-head against Hamilton, he got pole, he's no slouch.
Yeah, but I remember Ricciardo at Red Bull. I remember Ricciardo at McLaren. That's depends how long ago. Don't get me wrong, I like Bottas, and he's having a lot more fun, and he's more enjoyable to be around and to watch. But he's not the same guy that was at Mercedes. I mean, you seem to think that it's the car. Yeah, maybe you're right, because he is. Joe is going nowhere. So, which I'm surprised when Joe came into F1. I thought he was going to be a little bit better, but.
I didn't have any hopes for Zoe. He was relatively unknown to me. I didn't think anything of him. But no, I think Bottas is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think he's got more talent and pace. And I know, just like Ricciardo, he could have potentially fallen off, and maybe I'm just giving it all up to the car. I'm just being hopeful. But I don't know.
We'll find out. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, we will.
Where do Alpine go from here? Like, where the hell do they go from here? They get these big investments from all these athletes, Anthony Joshua and Patrick Mahomes, and all these people buy into the company, and it's been a rough go since then. They're almost always in the bottom 3, 4, 5 cars every weekend. Is that car still? Is it still the weight? Is it the drivers? Is it the team? Is it everything? Because it seems to be everything right now.
It's everything. It really is. Because I know one thing. When you start the year with a car that's heavy, yes, there could be some potentials to really make good progress with a heavy car. Because if you build it heavy and you can find good ways to cut weight, you can really change the balance of the car. You can make it easier on the tires. But I think when you also have a team that has 2 drivers that as long as they've been in F1, I still consider relatively inexperienced. It's hard to build a winning car without someone who knows how to win. You know what I mean? I think if Alpine
Yeah.
had a Fernando, a Sainz, a Leclerc, Verstappen, a Hamilton, anyone who's been in a winning car enough times to say, "Hey, no, this is what we need to do," I think they'd be miles ahead of where they are now.
There was talk. Look, personally, I'm a fan of Gasly. He's not like the best or anything. I don't think he's terrible. There was talk of bringing Steins to Alpine,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought, like you said, would have been a great move.
For the
I don't
team.
know where he'll end up. Probably Williams now. Like I think if I had to put money on it,
Mm-hmm.
I would say Williams. But like, how do you feel about Gasly and who takes that spot?
Honestly, Gasly's got that one Monaco win under his belt, and I think that's going to be it for him. Even if he were somehow able to finesse his way into a Red Bull seat, I think that's it. I think the team needs to get themselves a more experienced lineup, and
Yep.
no matter who they put in the seat with them next year, unless they luck out with engineering, I don't see the team going anywhere. I think, unfortunately, even with all the investment from the athletes and people like Ryan Reynolds, I don't think it's a money issue because they've always operated pretty near the cap. They are a works team, so it's not a money thing. I don't think it's a talent thing in terms of the engineering side of things. I just don't think they know which direction to develop the vehicle.
Yeah. Am I bugging or was it Monza he won? I thought it was Monza.
Oh shoot, you're right. Yeah, it
He
was
didn't.
Monza. Sorry.
He didn't win Monaco.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an M.
It was. It was
No, you're right. It was Monza.
yeah. Okay. So we've seen the rise of McLaren.
Hmm.
Hopefully it stays. Another historic team that I wish a lot of people were still in that team, but is Williams. I would love to see Williams back in at the top. When I started watching F1 Nerdy, I think it's around the same time as you, when Villeneuve was
Hmm.
battling Schumacher in those
Yep.
years, the mid '90s. BMW Williams,
Yep.
like those cars were unbelievable. We want to see the rise of Williams again. When are we going to see it? Is it coming? They seem to be taking the right steps, but it seems to be very slow. Um, Getting Logan Sargent in the car did not help. Uh, that's my opinion. It's just not working out. Obviously, we're going to see somebody there new next year,
Hmm.
but it's not just the drivers because we know Albon is good. But has his performance leveled off, and where do you see that team going?
It's so hard to judge Albon and his progress because one, we don't have a decent teammate to put him against. Sargent's dog crap. So yeah, Albon mops the floor with him every week, but I mean that's expected. And then we also have a car that's, I think, very easily underperforming in every area. I mean, at least last year they had fantastic aero, so it was great in a straight line, and they don't even have that this year, right? So
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to really see if Albon has tapered off or he's just struggling with a crappy car. I honestly have no way to make a judgment on Albon. I hope he's just as solid he is, because if they can come back next year with a solid car, which I think under the leadership of Vowles they have that ability to do so, it would be awesome to see Albon battling for podiums, because I mean he came up with a Russell and Lando, and they all said that he was faster than them. So why can't he get that
yeah,
seat? Like
yeah. I agree with you.
why isn't
I don't
he
know.
looking at like a Mercedes seat? Like that should be something that should be easy attainable for him. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe the dad on the back end shows a different story because they don't really talk about that, right? So
yeah, and like you said, that Williams is not. It used to be a rocket ship
mhm.
on straights, as we saw last year in Montreal,
Yep.
where he finished sixth or seventh and held off. Like there was a massive DRS train behind him. He held him off the entire time because of the straights. Um, Talking about this past weekend in Hungary, a car is not good in the straights. It's not great in the S's. It's not great in the slow sections. Like Hungary, to me, showed that for a track that has a different layout with some slow stuff, some medium stuff. Uh, the McLaren and the Mercedes seem to be the more well-rounded cars right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I agree 100%. Um, yeah, I love Williams. I really had an emotional connection to them, and it honestly broke me when Claire had to sell the team to Dorton Capital. I think it
Yeah.
would mean everything to the Williams family if Dorton Capital can come through and build a title contender. Doesn't even have to win. Just having them on the podium consistently. I think that would be enough for me. That would make me happy.
Unfortunately, we've been robbed, Nerdy, because nothing would have made me happier than if the Williams family still owned that company and
Yep.
they went back to their winning ways.
Yep.
That would have been the best.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, next up, we have Spa, which is, man, iconic track.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, who do you think? Who's your favorites, and who's going to be the surprises?
Okay.
Is Red Bull more suited to a track like that, or is it still going to be McLaren and Mercedes? What do you think?
I think Sector 1 and 3 are going to heavily favor the Red Bull. The Red Bull does have a straight line speed advantage over most teams. It's marginal, but depending on which wing they bring to the track, if they bring their high downforce wing to the track, they're going to be rocket ships when that DRS opens on that straight. If they bring the low downforce spec rear wing, they're going to have a less of a margin, but still think they'll have an advantage. Sector 2, with how they performed at Hungary, is going to be a struggle, but then who's going to
Yeah.
get past in Sector 2? You just got to make your car as wide as possible, and we all know Max is phenomenal at doing that. So I'm going to give the edge in the race to Red Bull, but I think in qualifying, it's going to be Lando or Piastri.
Yeah, that McLaren jumps all over curbs so easy. So
Mm-hmm.
these little chicanes, like at the final chicane and the one in Sector 1, like that's going to favor McLaren, I think.
Yep.
Um, let's get your predictions. What's your podium?
Ooh. Okay. Podium is going to be Lando, Max, Piastri.
Okay.
Uh,
Lando, Max,
yeah,
Piastri. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sticking with it. Lando, Max, Piastri. What about you?
Um, I'm gonna say, man, that's tough because I was gonna say Lando as well, but that straight line speed and that, like you said, the straight line speed of the Red Bull is fast,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that much faster. But it's when he opens up that DRS wing
Yeah.
that becomes a big issue. Um, I'm gonna say Max, Lando, and Hamilton again on the podium.
Ooh, okay, I'm not mad at that. um,
Yeah,
you think the Mercedes will be able to come back with another great car for that weekend?
I I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but the progression they've made,
Mhm.
let's see if it's real on every type of track. Let's see if they've found something. The confidence is sky high
Mm-hmm.
for Hamilton. Uh, so let's see. Yeah, I think it's possible. And I after that, after Piastri and Ferrari's not really there, Aston is nowhere. I like who else, you know?
No, I agree.
And there might be contact at the front. Like I just think, yeah, I think he can jump on the podium again.
Wait, hold on a
I
second.
do.
Is Spa a sprint week?
Uh, Good question. It was in the past, right?
I'm not sure. I'll look it up.
But yeah, they've changed there's 6 sprint weekends and they've changed them. So um, I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, my podium prediction doesn't change. I think Lewis can do well again. I don't think he can win the race, but I think he's going to be up there.
Yeah, I only asked because if Spa is a sprint week, it really makes it easier for Max to come through the field because isn't he taking an engine penalty? And if he's got to race and have to do all that passing with an engine penalty, it might make it a little bit harder. But no, it is not. It's
Um,
not a
yeah.
sprint.
Okay. Um, you're talking about Max. If he takes an engine penalty, is that what you said, Max?
Yeah, I believe Max is scheduled to take an engine penalty this weekend.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but even if he does,
Mhm.
oh yeah, this it's not a sprint. So the sprint would have helped him
Yeah.
because you get two races with DRS on those long straights to
Mhm.
kind of make ground up. But yeah, we'll see. If not, then I would definitely put if he's at the back, I would definitely put Lando, Hamilton, and Piastri. I mean, I think I think the world of Piastri. I think he's
Mhm.
unbelievable. I think he will be unbelievable for a long time.
Mhm.
So, um, any surprises for
Surprises.
Spa?
See, my surprise was going to be Hamilton, but you already put him on the podium. So, you know what? My man Hulkenberg. I've always been a fan. Loved it. Super sub. I'm saying Hulkenberg top 8.
Okay. You know what my surprise is?
What?
Screw you, nerdy. It's Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki's gonna finish 7th. You've heard it here first.
What's going to happen is going to be Yuki 7th, Hulk 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Hey, we'll both be happy about it.
Exactly.
Um, I can't wait for Spa. It's a great race,
Mhm.
great weekend.
Mhm.
And before we go, Nerdy, I will let you talk about the whole reason we do this is for our passion of F1,
Mhm.
obviously,
Mhm.
but it's also because we own a super fun, super exciting
Mhm.
racing sim league. So I will let you talk about that for a few minutes, and where can people join and the tiers that we have and the times. And um, it's great. This is called the Late Dive Podcast. Our league is um, Late Dive Racing. So
Mhm.
take it away, brother.
Yeah, so obviously, if you don't know, now you're about to know. I'll put the link in the comments below as well as on the screen. I'll put up a QR code so you can just use that to get yourself invited to our Discord, which is the easiest way to join. So basically, we've got a race league. We've got 4 tiers. We've got a development tier called Tier 3, where you can kind of join, hone your skills, learn the craft, and progress up the levels. Then we have Tier 2, which is where I race, for a little bit more experienced drivers. The assists are a little bit different between all the tiers, but as you go up the tiers, you get less and less aids. Then we have our Tier 1 guys, which is where Pat races. He's a little bit better than me, but we won't talk about that. So yeah, our Tier 1 guys, the only assist they really use is we do allow auto gears. We have corner line, and I believe that is it. And then our
Yep.
elite tier, which is kind of our tier that we have at the esports level, there are no assists. You don't get corner line, no ABS, no traction control, absolutely nothing. It's just you, that throttle, and the brake, and hopefully making some magic. But yeah, so our races typically are on Eastern time. We race at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time for all leagues, or sorry, all tiers, except for our tier 1, which is on Friday nights at 9:30 p.m. So if you like racing in Formula One and you want to join up to a squad of people who have a passion for racing just as much as you probably do, and you want to see if you got some skill on the track, join up. It's fun. Trust me. I've been doing this for what? For our 5th season now, so yeah, we love it. Join up. Great time.
Well done. This was fun, Nerdy.
Yes, this is
Let's
great.
let let's do it again after Spa. It's
Yes.
gonna be I think a great race.
Mhm.
Hopefully even more drama than Hungary.
I would like that. And I want to see how much of our predictions come true. We can talk about that next week.
I will be the Yuki to your Hulkenberg.
Yes.
Uh, this was awesome. This has been the Late Dive Podcast, episode 1. Join us for episode 2 after Spa. Have a great one. See you, Nerdy.
Later. See you guys.